Come join our meditation and wellness retreat. That's according to culture journalist Mahika Agarwal, who's been reporting on the grief tech industry, including ghostbots, the chatbots that are supposed to help us process grief. Marketplace's Lily Jamali spoke to Agarwal about her reporting for Vox and how there's a wide range of options gaining traction right now. Mahika Agarwal. On the milder side of the spectrum is apps like Storyfile and Hereafter AI that are essentially interactive memory apps. So, for instance, if I was planning my funeral and if I wanted my loved ones to have an experience where they could ask me questions about what my favorite food was, what was a memorable time in my life, I would be able to answer back. And then on the other side of the spectrum are apps like You, Only Virtual, which essentially aim to recreate the sense of the deceased. Agarwal. The ethics are really muddy around this, especially with the latter model, because vulnerable users most times aren't trying to figure out how their data is being used. Also, the post-mortem consumer protection landscape is really sort of nascent in the United States. I think New York and California are currently the only two states that do have some sort of post-mortem publicity rights, but even these extend only to celebrities, and they cater to the emerging trend of celebrity deepfakes that are being used to exploit and monetize celebrities without explicit consent. So, there's the question of whether the deceased was able to give consent before they died, which is a thing now. But for many people who have already died, it wasn't a thing when they were around because it's so new and fresh. The question of inheritance and ownership and who gets to decide how someone's digital footprint is being used and repurposed, I think those are still very active and alive debates in the Silicon Valley and cybersecurity landscape. Jamali. One of the phrases that you use in your writing is death technopreneurship. So, everything from digital estate planning startups to crowdfunding tools popped up, and grief tech kind of falls into that trend largely. So the question is of grief? Ask your inner self. For 13 days, the family and the friends of the deceased gather around food, and no one is expected to go to work. It's a time when day to night, 9 to 5, everyone just is there, either in some religious capacity or whatever that form of community gathering looks like for your family and friends. But for 13 days, everyone sort of gathers to commemorate that person essentially. Most companies give about 3 or 5 days to process the loss of a loved one, which is barely enough time to arrange a funeral, let alone grieve someone that was close to you. So, I just feel like culturally there's a lack of mourning rituals, and there's this tendency to distract and avoid grief rather than process it and integrate it into your life. It was Mahika's mention of the grief tech CEO who said he hopes people will one day no longer have to feel grief at all. That CEO is Justin Harrison, who founded You, Only Virtual, one of the startups we talked about, that focuses on creating communication that seems real between a living